So Brian, you can see that we are about to start.
Okay, we're about to start in 10.
Yes.
Are you okay to go?
Yes, I'm good to go.
Okay. Excellent. 10 to go.
Okay. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Good afternoon and welcome to Values Talk. Today we're joined by Margrethe Vestager, Executive Vice President of the European Commission, and Dacian Cioloș, the President of the Renew Europe Group in the European Parliament. I'm Brian Maguire. I'll bring you through the programme this afternoon. The main theme for today's discussion is artificial intelligence, and then we're also going to talk a little bit about the future of Europe and the conference that's ongoing at the moment. But before we begin, Dacian, tell us a bit about the concept of the Value Talks series.
Thank you, Brian. So as you mentioned, we'll discuss about future of Europe. And when we talk about future, the values and principles are the foundation of European Union. But what is more important than only to claim about values is to talk concretely how to integrate these values in practical decisions and in the legislation at European level, and how to build our economic and social development based on values. And today we will discuss about a very concrete example, using also the opportunity to have Margrethe Vestager with us. And thank you, Margrethe, being with us. You are the key person in the European Commission when we talk about digital agenda, but also values. You know very well this subject. So artificial intelligence is about economic development, about social evolution of our society, but also about ethical aspects. Okay. So this is why when we start to talk about future of Europe and the conference of the future of Europe, we want to give some concrete example to the people what means values, values being the DNA of Renew Europe family and liberal family, more generally speaking.
Excellent. Margrethe Vestager, it's really your job to put the practical dimension to this as well, make the rules work in an ethical way for Europe. What's the state of play when it comes to artificial intelligence at the moment?
Well, how long do you have?
For 60 seconds?
No, the very short version is, of course, that we want to promote the use of technology, also artificial intelligence. But the only way to do that is if you trust it. You don't embrace something that you do not trust. And this is why we have found that there are some use cases where there is a real risk that our values will be squeezed. So in those situations can be if you apply for a job or you apply to be accepted at university, you want to get a mortgage to buy a house. In these situations, you want to make sure that you are seen as the person you are with no prejudice, with no bias. So in those use cases, of course, we want to mitigate those risks so that we can embrace the use of technology. And then there would be a few use cases where we would say, no, this is simply not in accordance with our values. So we want to make those use cases prohibited in the Union. A good example of that would be a state using a sort of social scoring based on surveillance of the citizens.
Okay, thank you for that. We're going to come back to some of those issues in a few minutes as well. But before that, this short video just to give you some more background on artificial intelligence in Europe.
Artificial intelligence will soon be everywhere. In our phones, health systems, media, law enforcement, tourism, education, agriculture, you name it. AI systems have a strong potential to bring benefits and economic growth and enhance EU innovation and global competitiveness. But certain systems may create new risks related to user safety and fundamental rights. This leads to potentially slower adoption of AI technologies by businesses and citizens due to the lack of trust. The European Commission wants to make sure that AI used in Europe is rooted in credibility and excellence. AI development and use should be focused on us, human beings, and should be consistent with our European values. By turning our union into a hub for cutting-edge AI, we can demonstrate an ethical, human-centric approach to it. This is what Margrethe Vestager, the Executive Vice President of the European Commission for a Europe fit for the digital age, is fighting for. As a key member of the Renew Europe family, Margrethe Vestager is working on encouraging the development of AI while respecting European rules, and at the same time on fighting the abuse of data by tech giants. In May, the European Commission proposed new rules and actions aiming to turn Europe into a global leader of trustworthy artificial intelligence. The combination of the first ever legal EU framework on AI and a new coordinated plan with member states would guarantee the safety and fundamental rights for people and businesses, while strengthening AI uptake, investments and innovations across the EU. In the European Parliament, Renew Europe is taking the lead in creating a comprehensive vision for AI. We defend key positions in the Special Committee on Artificial Intelligence, led by the Renew member Dragos Tudorake, but also in the legislative work related to AI in the other committees of the Parliament. In Renew Europe, we believe that artificial intelligence can make a huge contribution to improving the lives of European citizens and fostering prosperity within the EU. We believe that investment capacities, data infrastructure, research, and the definition of common ethical norms should be regulated on European level. Our goal is to establish a framework which enables the development of trustworthy, ethically responsible, and technically robust artificial intelligence.
Margrethe Vestager, the idea that we need to combine excellence with trust, but still be a global leader with this as well, what does that mean to you? What is that going to mean practically?
Well, the excellence part is to invest in the development of artificial intelligence and to enable businesses to use much more artificial intelligence. And you know, it is so with talent that talent attracts talent. So here we can really create a good momentum by investing funds from Horizon Europe or national funds in creating this ecosystem of excellence. And the ecosystem of trust comes from the willingness to regulate the use cases where there is a risk of us being discriminated. Or values simply not being adhered to. And here we've been working with a lot of people around us. Basically, the starting point was a high-level expert group, 52 people who gave us sort of ethical principles. From that, we made a white paper to get as many views as possible on board. And only on the basis of that did we make the proposal to say, well, some use cases, they need to be dealt with in a more restricted manner in order for us to trust that technology works for us.
Let me ask Dacian, this white paper, are you comfortable that excellence and trust are embedded within that? Like Margaret says, talent will attract talent and we will become a global leader as a consequence?
No, I think what is more important than having rules, because in some fields the people don't like too much rules, but worse than having rules is to have unpredictability. So I think what European Union will furnish is to have a clear framework on how to develop this sector and where to invest. And we have a good example with GDPR data, when the liberal group asked for protection of data of people, because data are now the new gold mining for the economy. So if we will have clear rules from the beginning, debating about how to integrate ethical aspects to the industrial development, I think this will give predictability to the investors, and Europe can become a leader, and can become also a leader in producing standards at international level.
Okay, Margrethe Vestager, we hear lots of horror stories about AI replacing humans or outsmarting humans, though I'm sure that's not terribly difficult. But so how do we mitigate the risk elements in this as well? You know, how can legislation soften the edges with this?
Well, I think the problem is that often horror stories, they travel really fast, but all the good stories, they travel only mouth to ear. And what you see, for instance, I have seen doctors, you know, passionate to use artificial intelligence to help them look at sort of blood test results in order to find cancer, for you not to have the uncertainty having to wait for a very long time before you get the answer from your doctor, having to wait way too long before treatment can begin. Just to give you one example of all the many things that we can do with artificial intelligence. And when it comes to being outsmarted, of course there is a risk, but sometimes if well done, technology can also be more neutral than we sometimes are as humans, because the risk that things are biased comes from the fact that we as humans are biased. So if we can be more neutral, give better data into the machine, so they learn what would a world be without discrimination, then sometimes actually this can be a push for us as humans also to discriminate less than we would otherwise do.
Let me ask Dacian about that. This is perfectly true that we shouldn't assume that humans are without prejudice, without risk there as well, and we take some measures to mitigate that. You talked about the ethical framework that we need. How do you get this balance between mitigating risk and allowing innovation?
You know, as long as the technology help us to treat some diseases, we are on the good track. But you know, we talk about data, for example. We need a lot of data to make work some software and to produce some solutions. So here, I think, ethically speaking, it's important to protect private data of some people. But as long as this is done and is clear from the beginning, we can see results and we can see that artificial intelligence can save lives, and I think this is the key.
So it's a balancing act which has got to be done very carefully at this stage and get it right at the beginning and not have to fix it later.
Exactly.
Okay, let's take a question from Zeri Areto. He's the president of Young Democrats of Europe.
Hello, first of all, thank you very much for letting us ask these questions. And my question is really, what is the long-term strategy of the Commission on free trade and consumption? Do we feel like sanctions are the only measure we should take into account, or we should also ensure the awareness of the consumers on free trade and competition? Thank you very much.
Margrethe Vestager, I think that question's for you.
Yes, I think so too. And it just allows me to add one thing to what Dacian just said, which is that when you trust technology, then you're also creating a market for it. For instance, if public sector pick up artificial intelligence because you know it can be trusted, for instance, to be used in social affairs, then you create a market for technology. So it's also a driver. And I think it's important to take that into consideration, that trust is not something that is just putting up barriers. Trust is also something that opens doors. And that would lead me to answer the question, because we have basically sort of retired old ideas of free trade. Nowadays, we make much more advanced trade deals that would take into consideration environment, climate change. You know, we would not sign trade agreements with someone who would not sign up for the Paris Agreement. And I think that is really important, that we develop and give another sense of richness when we trade with one another, because then trade, tech, development in our relationship becomes one and the same thing. We just launched the Trade and Technology Council with our US partners, exactly to be able to discuss these things and to have a closer relationship with some of this richness that we just discussed.
Thank you. Dacian, markets like certainty, they like stability, they like the rule of law, and businesses need that to invest as well. So just like Margrethe was saying, how do you see this in terms of creating markets? Should we make sure the rule of law is front and center with the artificial intelligence strategy?
I think rule of law, it's a key element in all democracies. So it's not only about European Union. We insist on that because we are a union of member states, and it's important to have, if we have a common market at European level, to have also common rules, and the rule of law are key as a common rules. But when we share the same values with our other parts of the world, so it's normal to insist for rule of law. And in general, for standards, you say that European Union is a good producer of rules. But in artificial intelligence, I think we have the opportunity to become those who will produce standards for the rest of the world also. Working in partnership with US, for example, and why not with China. My colleague Dragoș Tudorache, who is the chair of Artificial Intelligence Special Committee in European Parliament, we created this committee exactly for that reasons, to put together people from several committees to discuss about these market aspects, but also ethical, human, and social aspects. So if we'll give predictability for our investors, we'll give predictability also for our partners, and we can start the reflection on how we can have standards at international level.
Thank you. Let's go to another question. This one's from George Popescu, who's a Romanian journalist who specializes in technology.
Greetings, Mrs. Vestager. My name is George Popescu, and I'm a Romanian journalist specialized in technology. Let me first congratulate you on your successes in fining tech giants like Amazon or Google over the infringements of data. My question to you, however, is how are we within the European Union supposed to fight fake news and the general distortion of media using artificial intelligence? Thank you.
Margrethe, over to you.
Well, that is indeed a question that has been troubling us for a very long time, because fake news is really damaging for our democracy and for our common understanding of the world that we live in. So a number of things can be done and must be done. One thing is, for instance, that when you're dealing with a machine, that there is sort of a labeling. If it's a machine talking to you, you should know that. Second thing, we have just strengthened our code of conduct, where all the major platforms have signed up in order for them to work more with us. We saw it under the pandemic, where platforms sort of pushed trustworthy information about the pandemic, so that if you wanted to find sort of the conspiracy theories and the fake news, you would really have to look for it. But you would, as the first thing, you would find trustworthy information about how to protect yourself, how to protect others. And I think it shows the balance that we both need to work with the platforms just as well as we need to regulate them in order to make sure that we protect freedom of speech, protect vulnerabilities online, for instance, that child abuse do not occur there, and that we make sure that the market is open for the many, many innovative businesses who want to succeed because they meet their consumers, not because big tech decides that they should be able to get to the market.
Thank you. Dacian, artificial intelligence is the new weaponry today as well. If we to preserve democracy, do we need to have the biggest, the best, the fastest artificial intelligence in the same way that you used to have the biggest guns, the biggest army to defend your democracy?
I think we have to have appropriate artificial intelligence tools. And we also have to be aware by the fact that artificial intelligence is not the panacea to all the problems that we have. Talking about fake news, Margrethe just explaining how it can be used in order to identify on some platforms some fake news based on facts analysis. But I think we have to look more overally, and to answer to George, I just want to underline the strategy on the fake news just presented by our political family colleague, Vice President of the Commission, Vera Jourova. So in this document, you can find also aspects about internet platforms and artificial intelligence, but also other tools that can be used in order to fight against fake news.
Thank you. Margaret, you mentioned earlier about the importance of data and the inputs and how that can trigger different forms of bias as well. But you were surrounded by technology which is embedded with different forms of AI, perhaps not so sophisticated just yet. But when we come to regulate this, how do you see it? What kind of machines and devices really do we need to pay attention to?
Well, I think we need to pay attention to most machines and most devices because they will all, one way or another, have learning options or be able to support decision making by humans. And we just looked into how voice assistants work. You know, the Internet of Things, where everything can be connected, your fridge, your oven, your electricity, your heating system, everything can be connected. And here actually we found some of our usual concerns, that it may be very difficult to buy your favorite gadgets without that being from the same one where you bought the first gadget and the second gadget and the third, that you can actually buy what you like because it can operate with one another. So we are finding some of the same competition concerns. And if we find competition concerns, then we also find a risk of losing innovation, because competition is the strongest driver of innovation. So it's really important to stay vigilant, both for the ethics, but also for the marketplace.
Okay, Dacian, not all artificial intelligence has the same risk level. Clearly, as Margaret said, there's a capacity for learning as well, but some were seen as high risk, others not so. And in the proposals that the Commission has put forward, higher risk elements will be subject to a lot more scrutiny. Do you think that's the right kind of approach?
Yeah, I think it's we have to concentrate when we talk about rules and standards. Of course, we have to focus on those artificial intelligence parts who are more risky for human beings, for the decisions that humans can take. And I think it's important to do this as early as possible, as I mentioned, in order.
Which kind of areas do you think is more important? Criminal justice, for example. How do you keep the human in the loop, and how do you regulate that process where artificial intelligence is part of the criminal justice system, for example?
I don't.
The criminal, for example, judges may ask for sentencing procedures to be reviewed by artificial intelligence. How should Europe view that? Should we go, okay, we can go that direction, but we have to keep somebody in control of this process as well, or do we just separate it out completely?
Yeah, I think we have to have a principle. The last decision should be took by the humans, and this is why we have judges. I think we will never be in a situation to replace the judges by artificial intelligence, but to help to understand what's happened exactly in a specific situation, then artificial intelligence can be used. But of course, the final decision have to be done by the humans.
Okay, so measured approach with scrutiny.
Exactly.
Okay, let's take another question. This one is from Sasha Halfan. She's a spokesperson of Le Jeune avec Macron.
Good afternoon. I'm Sasha from Paris. Madam Vice President, artificial intelligence is taking a much more important place in the field of health. Based on the speed of innovation, how can Europe be an example in terms of data protection and also a technical champion in this field? Thank you.
Margrethe, how do we stay as champions in these fields?
Well, we invest a lot of money, but we also invest ourselves. We need many more people, young people, and also people who have an education already, to invest their brains in knowing how to deal with this and how to innovate, how to use it, and not only to create next generation of artificial intelligence, but also to sort of reinvent our business models to use artificial intelligence. because the lack of human intelligence to use artificial intelligence is probably one of the main barriers for us really to excel in this area. And I think it will be a very interesting place to educate oneself, because as said, we will invest enormous amounts of funding in research, innovation, development when it comes to these technologies. But we can only really be good at it if humans want to invest themselves in being the masters of these technologies.
Dacian, we need to digitally upskill and reskill. The investment that Europe is now undertaking in its economy is focused on green and digital as well. President Macron, when they launched the Quantum report last year, he said France was not ready for this, Europe was not ready for this, and investment in education was really critical. How do you see us becoming champions if our education system is not fit for purpose for the digital age?
So we have to invest not only in the basic education system. So of course, for the new generation are maybe even better adapted than, I don't know, my generation to work with this new technology. I think we have to invest also in new pedagogical methods for the education, because we have seen now during these pandemics that not all the education system are adapted to work with this new technology. And I told here about teachers. So as long as the teacher is not, they don't have the good tools in order to educate the young generation, we have a problem. But we have to invest for the long life learning also for all the people.
So it's not just about young people, this has got to be across the generations.
Exactly, and this is not just in order to be adapted to our workplace, but also to work with, I don't know, public services, public administration, with a lot of things. The car are now full
autonomy.
Yeah, by new technologies. So we need to invest in the education and training of all the people.
Margrethe, is this just about STEM education, or do we need to be building new creative skills, like Dacian said, to work across different sectors, those people that can interpret in a managerial way complex projects?
Well, I think it's really important to build on passion here. Not everyone is passionate about being able to code or to develop technology, but if you're passionate about organic farming, well, let's then integrate, digital skills into the education as a farmer. If you're really passionate about renewable energy, then let's build in, courses on digital expertise into being an engineer within renewables, so that in business education, in order for people with business skills to know how can we develop business models using these technologies, I think we need a much more sort of perspective of integration in things that we are passionate about, because I think few people think that, oh, I should be a technologist, I should be someone working with technology. I think we have a different sort of approach to what should be our profession that is much more passionate. So I think if we can integrate it in everything we do education-wise, we have a fair chance of many more people being interested in mastering these things.
So a broad net approach rather than very specific focus on coding. Let's take another question now from Antonio Grasso. He's an Italian AI influencer.
Honorable Vice President Vestager, I am Antonio Grasso, an entrepreneur and member of the AI for Europe Evaluation Committee. Working in these roles, I'm fascinated by the amount of ingenuity injected into projects. My question is, how can we magnify our collective European ingenuity to increase competitiveness and scale digital leadership? Thank you.
How do we leverage the whole of the European community to go forward this way?
Well, first and foremost, Antonio, thank you very much for what you do. I think this is really excellent, that engagement. I think one of the things we could do is to talk more about it, honor good ideas, honor the people who brings us forward, because that is an inspiration for everyone to learn. And I would want us to create sort of lighthouses in Europe of highly talented people working with artificial intelligence, so that that talent can attract more talent, and we can have a real pan-European approach. And I think we need to prioritize. We need to put our money where our mouth is when it comes to artificial intelligence. That is the way to spread it, to make these interesting environments, and then people like yourself could get the inspiration maybe to do even more than what you do today.
Thank you. Margrethe, Dacian, the European Union has the EIC, it has the European Innovation Technology initiatives as well, and research and technology funding is there. Are we doing enough to bring all these elements together with different stakeholders, universities, entrepreneurs like Antonio?
I think we already invest a lot in innovation, in research, with a lot of networks at the European level, at even international level. What we have to do more, I think, is to make available this research and innovation and the results of research and innovation to small businesses, to small and medium-sized enterprises to start up, because startup and small companies are a very important source of production of new technology. And here in Europe, I think of course, we have to invest in the champions, in IT and in digital platforms, artificial intelligence, but also in small and medium-sized enterprises.
Are you sure that Europe's SMEs, which are about 90% of the backbone of our economy, are they going to get the money from the next generation EU funding?
I think this will depend a lot of how the member states will deal with this money, but I can assure you that European Parliament will look on it. We are involved in the evaluation of the way that this program will be implemented, and at least for Renew Europe Group, this was a key element from the beginning. Invest in skills, in the people, but also making available these funds at local level for small and medium-sized enterprises. And this can be done because we ask it to have less bureaucracy in the way to invest this money.
All right, I want to get on to talking about the future of Europe. We started a little late and I want to finish on time, but just a quick comment from both of you on the risk that we over-regulate and that we limit our entrepreneurs on the global economy, that there's no level playing field. Margrethe, are you confident we'll get this balance right, or are we still too early to decide when it comes to AI?
Just one thing, when you're asking about funding, actually, we're in the process of having artificial intelligence help small and medium-sized businesses find their way in our different funding systems. Of course, that talks to the complexity of our funding systems, but it's interesting that also here there is a use for artificial intelligence. On the conference on the future of Europe, of course, these are very early days, but I hope that the conference will sort of guide us as to where to deliver. Because even when we have sort of our overall strategies about digital transformation, fighting climate change, being climate neutral, there are so many things that we can do. And I think it's important that the conference is tangible, concrete, telling us what is expected, so that we can deliver concrete results that allows people to have more opportunities than they have today.
Okay, Dacian, digital transformation is a key topic for the conference. What do you want to see? What would you like to see at the end of this process when it comes to digital transformation as an output from the conference?
You know, you asked before how to avoid an over-regulation. I think being in touch with the people, we can avoid to over-regulate. So going beyond the Brussels bubble, or I don't know, the legislative bubble, being in touch with the people. In some sectors, the people ask for standards and for rules, exactly in order to have a level playing field and proper competition. And this is what we intend to do with this conference on the future of Europe, to discuss with people, because of course we have, as a European Parliament, mandate to legislate, to take decision on that. But what is important now is to see the perception of the people about what we are discussing and what we are deciding here. So talking about artificial intelligence, we will discuss this in when we'll discuss about digital transformation, but also about values, and we will put together people who ask for more attention on ethical aspects and on values, and with the people coming from economic and industrial sector asking for more flexibility.
Okay.
So this is about debate in the society that we want with this conference.
Okay, we're almost out of time, so I just want to get 30 seconds from each of you in terms of how we keep this human. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the Commission, set out her whole agenda saying this has to be a human-centric approach as well. Margrethe, when we talk about artificial intelligence, is it easy to forget this is about improving our human experience, or are we too focused on the economy?
No, I think, well, for me, this is top of mind. This is what gets me out of bed in the morning, because I see that we can do so much better in health. Just see what artificial intelligence has helped us to map the virus, has helped figuring out what molecules can actually help if you get the virus. I see the potential in education, that you can better help young people get the level of learning that they are ready for. I see how we can have a more equal access to public services. So I think this is really a chance to fulfill some of the many promises given over the decades about a more inclusive society. And last but not least, I think our democracy can show that there is a difference between a democracy and those who are not a democracy, because our standards, our use of technology is building on the integrity and the dignity of each and every one of us, where in other parts of the world, basically it builds on the state wish to do surveillance on its citizens. So I think both in our everyday life and in showing what democracy is about, I think we have something really strong going for ourselves here.
Thank you. Last word, Dacian. Renew Europe is about putting the fundamental rights at the heart of artificial intelligence as well. For you, is this about tech for good? And are you encouraged that we're going the right direction now?
So Renew Europe, it's first of all to do politics and decisions for people. And technology should be for people and with people, not against people. And this is our key objective in this process, to make available a new technology for all category of people, not only for a rich one, for all member states, for all sectors, but in order to do this for the prosperity of the people and in order to improve the life of the people. And this is Renew Europe. This is for us renewing Europe and modernizing Europe, do things for people and together with the people.
Thank you, Margrethe, Dacian. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to our audience and for sending in your questions. Also, you can continue the conversation online, and you can tag both Margrethe and Dacian as well if you want them to hear your voice and continue with the conference on the future of Europe. They want to hear from you, not just in the Brussels bubble. So I wish you a good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Brian.
We're still off. Thank you. Good to see you.
And thank you, Margrethe.
No, thank you
so
very
much.
much.
Good to see you.
This was